I want to short the housing market.
Really? But the housing market is rock solid.
Greenspan just said bubbles are regional, defaults are rare. Tell them I'll be there.
In a minute. Say again?
Look, Greenspan's wrong.
The first three movies we've covered, Wall Street, Glengarry Glen Ross, and The Wolf of Wall Street, all share the dubious distinction of taking place, at least to start, in the space of the 1980s. A decade known for its greed, excess, and rampant neoliberalization of everything. Well, I'm happy to say that starting in 2000, we ended neoliberal capitalism. It was over. No more greed on Wall Street. So no more movies to cover. We've done it, folks. Just kidding, come back. Tonight we're going to be discussing Adam McKay's 2015 biographical film, The Big Short.
Somewhere along the line, these B's and double B's went from a little risky to dog shit. Where's the trash?
Behind you.
I'm talking rock bottom FICO scores. No income verification. Adjustable rates. Dog shit.
In Adam McKay's first serious film, after his long-running collaboration with Will Ferrell, he adapted Michael Lewis's book, The Big Short, inside the Doomsday Machine. The Big Short is about the few investors who broke with conventional wisdom and decided to do an insane thing by the rules of the early 2000s, short the housing market.
Okay, you're saying that at 8% the bonds fail and we are already at 4%?
That's right.
If they go to 8, it's Armageddon.
Yeah, that's right.
How come nobody's talking about this?
In 2007, following another bubble bursting in 2000, the dot-com bubble, America's financial system crashed under the shaky weight of a massive housing bubble. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, banks in the US acted as if everyone would soon be flushed with cash and started handing out housing loans to anyone who wanted one, including people who obviously had no way to possibly pay back their mortgage.
The mortgage-backed security, or private label MBS. You've got your average person's mortgage, fixed rate, 30 years, boring, safe, small payoff, right? But when you have thousands of them all bundled together, suddenly the yield goes up, but the risk is still small because, well, they're mortgages. And who the hell doesn't pay their mortgage?
These subprime mortgages were bundled together with thousands of them, hoping to redistribute some of the risk. Slapped with a really good credit rating, after banks essentially bribed the ratings agencies, they were sold and resold, packaged as collateral debt obligations, and these CDOs became riskier and riskier. Part of the theory behind packaging them was that they wouldn't all default at the same time, but starting partway through 2007, as interest rates rose from adjustable rate mortgages, which made up an increasingly large amount of them, they did in fact all default at the same time. Almost nobody predicted that this would happen or paid any attention, except some of the people who ended up shorting the CDOs.
You want to bet against the housing market?
Why? Those bonds only fail if millions of Americans don't pay their mortgages. That's never happened in history. If you'll excuse me, Dr. Berry, it seems like a foolish investment.
Based on prevailing sentiment of the market, banks, and popular culture, yes, it's a foolish investment, but everyone's wrong.
The Big Short tells the story of three groups of these investors. Christian Bale is Michael Burry of Scion Capital. Burry has a glass eye, social skill problems, and a genius for money. He's a former doctor who left medicine to start a hedge fund. After subscribing to his blog and email blasts, big investors started putting money into his hedge fund to use for value investing. Burry realized in 2005 that these subprime mortgage bonds are a ticking time bomb, and began to short them with his investors' money.
So Mike Burry of San Jose, a guy who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan and Hank Paulson.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does. That's cute.
Much to their outrage, the investors had just given him money to pick stocks. His investments created the market for these short bets, creating the credit default swaps for subprime mortgage bonds. After hearing about Burry's short bets, a Deutsche Bank executive, Jared Vennet, began calling around hoping to research this and get more information. And had his quant, a Chinese-American analyst who pretends is Chinese and can't speak English, confirm the numbers he's seeing about the subprime mortgages.
He won a national math competition in China. He doesn't even speak English. Yeah, I'm sure of the math.
Actually, my name's Jiang, and I do speak English. Jared likes to say I don't because he thinks it makes me seem more authentic.
Bennett is played by Ryan Gosling and based on a guy named Greg Littman. He takes it to several banks, but eventually to Morgan Stanley, where Mark Baum where Mark Baum, played by Steve Carell, and Vinny, played by Jeremy Strong, Porter Collins, and Danny Moses are working at a hedge fund called Front Point Partners, under the Morgan Stanley umbrella, but not exactly controlled by them. They accidentally get a phone call from Jared and have him in to explain the bet. Almost everyone at Front Point Partners prides themselves on their cynicism, hating Wall Street and the big banks despite working inside of one.
Well, my firm offers ninja loans. No income, no job. I just leave the income section blank if I want. Corporate doesn't care. These people just want homes, and they go with the flow.
Good for you.
Your companies don't verify.
They are still shocked to learn how close to collapse everything really is. Mark Baum, who is obnoxious and also has terrible social skills, takes his hatred of these lenders and their practices more and more personally.
Short everything that guy has touched. I want $500 million more swaps.
You sure about that? The collateral calls can bankrupt you.
Yeah.
And continues to raise the short position, hoping to extract pain and blood, much to the chagrin of his wife, played by Marissa Tomei. Finally, we have two young kids, Charlie, played by John Majaro of Past Lives fame, and Finn Windrock as Jamie, who are desperately trying to get a seat at the table as a tiny garage-based investment firm, the Brownfield Fund, based on a fund called Cornwall Capital. They happen to meet Ben, played by Brad Pitt, a former securities trader who has since left in disgust. They happen to find the prospectus left behind by Jared, although they admit they actually just read about the imminent collapse in real life. And they decide to use this as an opportunity to show Brownfield is capable of making this sweeping call. The film is shot in a certain style that was big in the mid-2010s, and that I quite like, with a fairly documentary feel, lots of B-roll footage from the mid-2000s to make you remember the time.
Okay, Selena has a pretty good hand here, showing 18, dealer showing 7. That's a really good hand for Selena. Good odds. In fact, her chances of winning this hand are 87%.
So, my odds are good. I'm on a winning streak. Everybody in this place wants to get in on the action. How could I lose, right?
Now, this is a classic error. In basketball, it's called the hot hand fallacy.
Characters often break the fourth wall, including Ryan Gosling's Jared, who serves as a kind of narrator. They also bring in other celebrities, including an immediately post-Wolf of Wall Street Margot Robbie, who I did not know was Australian when I saw this in theaters in 2015.
By the way, these risky mortgages are called subprime. So whenever you hear subprime, think shit.
As well as Anthony Bourdain and Selena Gomez, who is paired with Richard Thaler, the father of behavioral economics, in a very funny pairing, to explain concepts like the collateralized debt obligation and subprime mortgages. These quickly delivered explanations mean that the film doesn't get too boring as characters explain the concepts. The film, which changes names and places for some of the characters, although it doesn't drastically change their stories. In fact, a lot of the dialogue is taken right from Michael Lewis's book. Admits to how it's in tension with the story, call it dramatic license in many cases.
It's a lot of money. I get it. I can feel you judging me. That's palpable. But hey, I never said I was the hero of this story.
The film is also in tension with itself by the end, realizing that it's dealing with stories of people who are maybe not as reprehensible as the big Wall Street traders or the soulless lenders. One particularly reprehensible one is in league with Merrill Lynch that Mark Baum meets. But still, the narrator of the movie is Jared, who works for Deutsche Bank and makes money for them in the midst of a crisis they helped create. The course correction is saved for the very end, as Jared said, "Hey, I didn't say I was the hero." The investors we see are working for some of the biggest financial institutions, but are ultimately profiting off betting on the suffering and pain of people throughout America.
You know what I hate about fucking banking? It reduces people to numbers. Here's a number. Every 1% unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. Did you know that?
The strangulation of the middle class. Our natural desire to find heroes and villains should be crushed by the film's ambivalence and our characters' ambivalence by the end. In the end, only one banker, who isn't even at the top of the food chain, goes to jail. And the system continues on. Even collateralized debt obligations don't end. In fact, everyday Americans are left holding the bag and have to actually bail out the big banks.
I have a feeling that in a few years, people are going to be doing what they always do when the economy tanks. They will be blaming immigrants and poor people.